The jungle didn't hum. It pressed. Each layer of canopy above Rhea held moisture, weight, and temperature like overlapping lungs exhaling in slow rhythm. Light barely pierced through the triple-leaf coverage. What reached her observation perch was muted and green-filtered, every movement a blend of leaf shift and insect drift. Sweat soaked her sleeves, held tight beneath the elbow-length ghillie wrap she had tied off with surgical tape. For the 19th consecutive hour, she remained motionless. Spine settled into the curved fork of a root, rifle resting on its belly above a compact tri-leg platform molded into the earth. She didn't blink often. She didn't need to. A high branch 2 meters above held a strip of nylon torn from an old ration pack, tied at the center with a half knot. It moved now slight flutter to the southeast. That marked a shift. 30 minutes earlier, it leaned due south, wind threading in, pressure dropping. She logged it internally. No sound followed. The birds had silenced half an hour ago. That was earlier than expected. 90 meters below, the overgrown access trail curved into a tight switchback beside an abandoned fuel drum. It hadn't shifted since she checked it last. No fresh prints, no vehicle gouge. A pair of black jungle crows nested nearby. Quiet now, but active at dawn. Rhea used their rhythm to track intervals in the absence of a watch. The weight of the sun shifted across her scope glass. That told her the hour more reliably than any satellite burst. Her position had been selected 72 hours earlier using predictive terrain angles posted through encrypted grid maps. Joint Task Force Echo had assigned her as Arrow 7, lead overwatch on a suspected arms corridor carved into the jungle ridgeline. The primary kill team was grounded after satellite return, flagged anti-air radar traces. That left her alone. No support. No spotter. Command authorized static hold until confirmation. They hadn't promised pickup. That detail was left open-ended. She didn't request clarification. The last encrypted check-in came 4 hours ago. Short burst. No acknowledgement. That was standard. If the convoy arrived and the target exited, she was cleared for elimination. No signal intel. No drone footage. Visual confirmation only. The only certainty was the scope in front of her. Her rifle had been rebalanced for this climate. Suppressed barrel, extended cooling fins, and a polymer bolt calibrated for high humidity. The sling was doubled to anchor against tree flex. The scope lens sat at 26 inches above root line, no higher. She had verified it twice by laser backscatter. Her cheek rested steady. No muscle drift. No fidget. Only breath. Controlled in thirds. She had counted 37 insects cross her scope housing since sunrise. None made it inside. She had sealed the collar line with duct tape binding to prevent entry. Even during still hold, no motion, no reaction. Bugs were not the threat. Movement was... Every twitch was a broadcast. She hadn't eaten since before sunset. That was protocol. Digestion drew blood flow and dulled response. She sipped once from a hydration bladder tucked under her left side. Enough to moisten her mouth. Nothing more. Hunger could be ignored. Muscle fatigue could not. She had trained in partial body contraction techniques, holding her lower spine firm while keeping her hands and trigger arm fluid. Her trigger finger rested forward, along the outside of the guard, never curled. Not until decision. It was the difference between readiness and anticipation. The trigger was not part of the rifle. It was the final approval mechanism. The compound ahead sat silent, 400 meters downslope and across a thin tree-line break. 4 structures, thatched, moss-heavy, no heat signature. 2 satellite dishes on the rear wall were corroded and useless. A lean-to with a tarp roof held a tan vehicle, possibly a civilian pickup. Possibly not. No movement. She kept the crosshairs aligned to the eastmost opening. If someone exited, they would cross into that funnel. Her scope was already calibrated. Elevation dialed to +0.3. Wind at 30 degrees. No correction needed yet. A macaque troop had passed through near dawn. Non-aggressive. She logged their route for terrain memory. The fourth one in the line had stumbled. That marked uneven ground, likely root spread beneath leaf mold. That spot would give if stepped on hard. She mentally flagged it. From her left, a soundless flicker, leaf shift, dust, rotor wash. She adjusted her scope. The horizon beyond Sector 3 showed a soft plume kicking upward. Vehicle disturbance, not foot traffic. Geometry of spread-matched axle rotation. Two distinct shapes moved through brush. Flat roofline. Grill height aligned with non-military utility transport. The lead truck cleared the tree line. Tan body. Aftermarket floodlights. Suspension riding heavy. The second vehicle followed. Slightly staggered. Taller frame. Rear end tarped. Civilian style. But the formation was tight. She didn't flinch. Driver's side door opened before the truck fully stopped. A figure stepped down. No visible rank. No uniform. Face not visible. The man moved around to the rear axle. Opened the tarp. She adjusted magnification by 1 point. Still no identifier. Her eye tracked motion. Her body did not. Target unconfirmed. She logged a breath. In through the teeth. Hold. Out through the veil. Stillness returned. She remained behind the scope. The jungle held its breath. So did she. The ops board at Camp Sorell was taped to a folding table, weighted at each corner with field gloves and laminated map tiles. The jungle heat had already warped the printout by the time the final assignment list was posted. Marines in desert pattern fatigues gathered under the overhead tarp in loose groups, scanning names by column. Rhea stood 1 pace back, boots squared, helmet clipped to her belt. She didn't lean in or ask. Her eyes landed once on the sheet. Kill team confirmed. Captain Hill called out, voice sharp, one hand flat over the paper. Simmons, Everett, Tran, De Silva. Rotation Bravo holds perimeter. Echo assets 1 and 3 on overwatch. Rhea waited. Hill didn't look her way. He continued briefing in clipped segments, outlining approach routes and threat assessments pulled from satellite feed. When he finished, Lieutenant Colt Simmons gave a glance down the table and spoke low enough for nearby ears. Gunny's not on the list. She's Echo 7, Hill replied without turning. Assigned to forward overwatch. Passive post. No pull-trigger directive unless instructed. Simmons gave a short shrug. Thought she was on active roster last cycle. Hill tapped the page. This one's tight. No optics risks. We need the kill team clean. From behind the tarp, a second voice joined. Sergeant Boyle had a cup of instant coffee in one hand and a rolled-up Shema in the other. He didn't smile when he spoke. She used to be good, right back when we still had call signs that meant something. No one responded. Rhea stepped away without breaking pace. She didn't need to ask for clarification. The manifest had already told her what command wouldn't say aloud. Later that afternoon, in the debrief room near the flight line, air conditioners rattled under the weight of late summer heat. A dozen Marines leaned across mesh chairs, trading gear prep notes and field rumors. A screen blinked blue against the far wall. Cycling between weather updates and encrypted uplink status, Rhea entered with her gear bag slung low, rifle case balanced under one arm. Gunny, you running solo? One corporal asked, not mockingly, just surprised. Echo 7, holding post, she answered, short and dry. Long hours for no trigger, the corporal muttered. Across the room, a younger sniper she didn't recognize flipped a loose mag pouch on his knee and grinned sideways. Legacy slot. They keep one open so the old guard gets their stripes counted. Someone else added. Or maybe it's a morale roll. Every unit needs a ghost. No one laughed outright, but the tone was clear enough. Rhea said nothing. She crossed to the corner near the auxiliary bench, sat down on a crate lid, and unzipped her case. The rifle came out clean. She began field stripping it with methodical precision, setting each piece in line beside a soft cloth folded into thirds. The cloth was creased perfectly. That habit had never changed. Conversations continued around her, orbiting without direct contact. Someone turned up the volume on a live drone feed. Others checked their suppressors and marked elevation dials. The space smelled of CLP oil, dust, and overworked fans. A speaker near the door clicked once as a message came through, but no one moved to check it. Sergeant Boyle passed again and tapped the board with a knuckle. Echo 7 gets the view. No engagement. No credit. He didn't mean it cruelly, but he didn't mean it kindly either. That evening, outside the bunk tent, the sun fell through haze without ceremony. Rhea sat beneath the camo netting with her weapon across her knees. She cleaned the barrel with slow, measured strokes, eyes forward. The others were louder now. Voices from the cook tent, carried in bursts. Someone bragged about a drop clearance in Kandahar. Someone else mentioned a broken optic he'd fixed with a fork and duct tape. The stories ran in circles. The details shifted, but the names they repeated were always the same. She kept to the rhythm of the cloth, rotate, inspect, reset. Beside her in the shade, a smaller pack lay closed. Inside was a laser rangefinder with a cracked button and faded tape along the side. The word Echo 5 was scratched into the bottom plate. She hadn't shown it to anyone on this rotation. It wasn't for them. It had no place on the board anymore. Her orders came at 0400 the next morning. She was last to load. A rear crewman waved her toward the jump seat beside the gear crates. She secured her bag beneath her knees, locked her belt clip, and didn't speak. No one asked her name. No one checked her assignment band. The bird lifted through fog. No briefing, no handshake. She didn't request a call sign. It was already printed on her sling. Arrow 7, forward post, no partner, no return window specified. That was the assignment, nothing more. Movement began at the edge of the clearing just past hour 20. The air had cooled slightly, and condensation formed on the underside of leaves. Rhea tracked a dust plume before she heard anything fine grit rising in a steady arc from the eastern trail, spaced by rotation. Axle disturbance. She adjusted her scope up 2 notches. The truck came into view, frame jolting over the rocks. Tan body, reinforced undercarriage, no visible flag, not military, not local police. Possibly third-party contractor, possibly not. The vehicle coasted into the compound without pause. 2 people jumped from the flatbed. Both wore neutral clothing sleeves rolled, pants mismatched. They moved without urgency. The driver, still inside, angled the truck toward the lean-to structure she had marked the day before. A second vehicle arrived 2 minutes later, this one darker, older, with corrugated side panels and a blue tarp secured across the rear. Rhea adjusted focus. No one exited immediately. The side mirror shook once. Then the door opened. A man stepped down. She didn't move. She tracked the gate first straight, solid, not hurried. He circled behind the truck, reached for the rear latch, then paused to assist an older woman climbing out. She wore a shawl, no shoes. Her face was drawn but calm. He helped her down, placed her hand on his arm, then gestured toward the structure. The woman kissed his hand before she went. He removed his cap. Even through fogged heat distortion, the profile was unmistakable. Rhea blinked once, slowly. He moved toward the central supply crate. His posture remained the same. Low stance, knees slightly bent. She noted his left wrist still taped where he had broken it years ago. The gesture of his shoulder as he pivoted matched a file she had once memorized. The lean was exact. The stance was not rehearsed. It was lived in, routine, authentic. Her HUD blinked. Facial recognition algorithm loaded, cross-referenced against the biometric database linked to Joint Task Force Echo. Match Major Daniel Beckett, status KIA, 4 years prior, last confirmed operating unit Charlie 6, prior command Rhea Carter, then Staff Sergeant, presumed lost in action during the Kandahar River raid. The overlay flickered once, then locked. A new ping came through, short burst encrypted pulse, coded under central fire chain. Target verified, priority 1 asset, confirm ID, green light approved. She exhaled once, slow and even. Her cheek remained still on the rest. Her trigger finger stayed forward. Beckett moved another crate by hand. No assistance. His shirt stuck slightly to his back from sweat. He turned to say something to a younger man carrying 2 water jugs, then lifted a bundle of wiring into the shade of the second hut. There was no sidearm, no visible comms device. His hands were bare. He ducked under the eave and pulled a corner of tarp to shade an open cooler. Rhea magnified the view. Inside, basic medical supplies, bandages, saline packs, blister tape, civilian inventory, not organized like militant stock. No ammo canisters, no labeled boxes, no external guard shift rotation. He walked back toward the truck. Another woman waved at him from the compound entrance. He nodded in return. Casual. Rhea tracked every step. A boy passed near him, barefoot and wide-eyed, holding a small woven basket. Beckett stepped aside to give him space, then turned his back to continue unloading the tarp bundle. Dog tags. The flash was brief metal swinging as he shifted his torso to brace the weight. 2 tags, looped and dulled from wear. She had seen those before. He hadn't replaced them. No attempt to hide them, either. Rhea kept her eye on the scope. Her right hand rested along the grip, uncurled. The kill sheet in her thigh pocket noted a single rule above all others. No shot until visual plus ethics alignment. She repeated the words in silence, not as a mantra, but as verification. The kind of internal logic that didn't sway with weather, politics, or rank. The HUD continued to blink. A second message arrived. Echo command requesting kill confirmation. Target in open. Line of sight clear. Priority override granted. Execute at will. She adjusted the focus one more time. The heat distortion had thickened slightly near ground level. Wind shift coming in from the west. Her wind flag trembled high in the canopy. 38 degrees. No correction needed. She accounted for it anyway. Beckett stood now, framed between the 2 huts, hand on hip, speaking to someone out of frame. His tone looked calm. No sharp movement. No orders barked. No weapons raised. No perimeter checks. No radio clicks. Only him and the people around him, moving at a pace Rhea hadn't seen in years. She could end it. One shot. He would drop. Her exit plan was viable. No spotter needed. No counter-snipe threat within 600 meters. She had logged the terrain already. The vectors were mapped. The bullet drop was known. But it wasn't the shot that mattered. It was the moment. And the moment was wrong. She did not move. She watched. Observed. Confirmed what the data would never show. Major Daniel Beckett was alive, and he was not hostile. She remained behind the scope, breath level, weapon steady. Trigger finger forward, not curled. Waiting. Rhea disengaged her rifle from the tripod and let it settle across her lap. Her cheek lifted from the comb, scope still trained on Beckett, but now observed through distance, not intent. Her hands moved without rush. Left gloved thumb slid under the pouch flap, unclipping a small device nestled behind the inner seam. COM 7. Passive analog. Narrow band. She hadn't used it in 4 years. The casing was scratched, edges worn from previous deployments. The frequency dial clicked reluctantly, stiff from disuse. She rotated it 2 clicks left, then 1 notch forward. The red LED didn't light, but the unit pulsed once in her earpiece. Connection active, no encryption, no trace log. This channel had once belonged to Alpha Watch, used only in denied comms operations where uplinks failed and trust had to move through silence. She pressed transmit and said 1 sentence, voice even, pitched low against the canopy. 2 clicks west, low fire lane. Alpha Watch never forgot the ditch. She released the button, waited. Below. Beckett stopped mid-stride. It wasn't a theatrical freeze. He simply became still, as though hearing something from a different era. His head tilted slightly to the left. He didn't speak. Instead, he turned and gestured to the woman beside him. She moved at once. No hesitation. She began clearing the crate she had been unloading. Others followed her lead. No panic. No running, just motion quiet and rehearsed. Civilians began stepping into the brush in staggered order. Hands light on canvas packs, backs hunched low. Rhea stayed on glass. Her lens followed every step. She counted 17 individuals in motion. No comms gear visible. No flares. The group split in coordinated lines, some following natural contours of ridgeline, others fading between root clusters. One man paused to help an older couple cross the gravel berm. A younger girl, with a limp, was lifted without ceremony and carried into the green. Beckett moved last. He closed the tarp over the truck bed and secured both sides with twine. His movements were deliberate but calm. He pulled a length of netting over the tailgate and anchored it down. Then he stepped out into the clearing and looked up. Not at her position, not toward the hill. He looked at the broken flagpole sunk at the edge of the compound's south fence, an old marker painted blue, now collapsed and half buried. It had been their evac signal once, when everything else failed. That was where they waited. He didn't wave, didn't call out, but he lingered 3 seconds longer than needed before turning and disappearing into the trees. From Rhea's left, a shimmer. Not light, not leaf motion, too sharp, a color shift in the wrong place. She rotated scope 1 degree west. 2 figures, crouched low, not part of the compound. One wore surplus camo, the other jeans and a tactical vest. One behind a root stack, one prone, both with glassed optics and barrel length beyond standard recon. Their posture was not defensive. They weren't watching the compound. They were watching Beckett. She adjusted her angle, elevation up by 0.3. Fired once. The round struck bark just above the prone figure's boot, splintering the edge and sending a flare of dust into the air. Both men jerked. One dropped flat. The other spun and scrambled back into the brush. No return fire, no radio signal, no challenge code. Within seconds, they vanished into the terrain. She held her position, chambered a new round, and waited. Command buzzed in her headset. Arrow 7. Confirm discharge. Was that engagement? She let it hang. The voice on the other end didn't repeat. She toggled her mic. Shot fired. No confirmed enemy, just forest noise. The channel stayed quiet. No reprimand. No response. Silence was sometimes easier than procedure. She lifted her hand and tapped the side of her helmet behind the ear guard. The passive cam module engaged. A red dot lit, then dimmed. Visual log active. She had set the system years ago to trigger only by manual input. No auto buffer, no pre-roll. If she started it, she owned it. From this moment forward, every frame would be documented and streamed to her encrypted offline storage. No cloud relay, no live sync. Just the raw truth. The footage would capture everything. Beckett helping civilians, the compound emptying without alarm, the armed observers flanking the trees, the absence of weapons, the weight of silence, the decision not to fire. It would be seen by someone eventually. That wasn't the point. The point was she had seen it, and she knew what it was not. She rested the rifle across her knees again, the ghillie hood draped down her back. Her face was unreadable. She did not speak again. Rhea descended slowly, taking the path she had logged during insertion. Her ghillie wrap was bundled under one arm. Her rifle was slung low, barrel down, latch clipped but not locked. Leaves brushed her forearms and the sun slipped below the ridgeline as she moved. No radio chatter, no surveillance drone overhead. Only her boots pressing softly into the damp root mat and the distant call of a crow echoing once through the trees. The clearing was quiet. The tarp still rustled where Beckett had tied it down. He stood alone at the edge, one hand resting on the rear latch of the vehicle. He did not step forward. He did not raise his voice. His posture didn't change when she emerged from the tree line. Rhea stopped 6 paces out, squared off. No aim, no threat. Her hands rested on the sling. Beckett nodded once. "You shouldn't be here." She didn't reply. Her eyes moved across the clearing. No civilians. No weapons visible. The crates had been stripped and the lean-to stood empty. He folded his arms. Voice even. "They're gone. No one's coming back." Rhea kept her stance steady. "I counted 17. He looked away briefly. then back. That's what we had this week. Last week it was 12. She watched him in silence. He glanced toward the sky, then back down. You made contact. I sent a phrase. His expression changed just enough to register. I figured, when the girl moved first, I knew it was you. Why are you still here? He rested his elbow on the corner of the truck. The drop site started getting hit by looters 2 months ago. Aid never made it past the border fence. These people weren't armed at first. But when you're abandoned, you find a way to hold ground. He nodded toward the now empty crates. Everything we moved was defensive. Signal flares, thermal blankets, water purification tabs. The one rifle we had was decommissioned. I kept it strapped just to keep the scavengers off. You're aware of what command flagged this site as, Rhea said. Militia resupply node. I know. They pulled that label from 2 partial reports. Both were third hand. One came from a busted drone that misread a water barrel as an ammo cache. She narrowed her gaze. Your face hit my HUD. Confirmed match. Status killed in action. 4 years ago. Beckett exhaled. Better that way. Keeps the paperwork simple. If I show up alive, they have to explain why they sent us in with no backup and no exfil. Easier to list us as losses than admit the map was wrong. There was a pause. No tension, just space. He reached under his collar and pulled out the tags. I kept them on. Didn't expect anyone to come looking. But if they did, I wanted it clear who I used to be. You were never listed as captured. I walked out on foot. Found a village that took me in. I stayed useful. Kept the name quiet. It grew into this. Rhea adjusted the sling on her shoulder. Her tone didn't shift. You're not the target they wanted. Then who is he asked? They haven't decided yet. Beckett nodded like he understood. Do what you need to. She reached up and tapped the side of her helmet. The red LED blinked once. Her rifle stayed lowered, crosswise across her chest. Barrel inverted. Command. This is Arrow 7, she said. Target is non-hostile. No combatants present. Local population confirmed. Site vacated. Per observation protocol and sustained visual assessment, I am invoking Red Flag 7. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not engage. The response came back sharp and immediate. Arrow 7. That directive is not yours to give. You are not cleared for override. Stand by for correction. No override authorized, she replied. You are in breach of rules of engagement. Subsection 2, paragraph 8. Stand down. I am standing down, she said calmly. Target is not a threat. This is a formal declaration of ethical refusal. You are warned. This insubordination will be logged and reviewed. Await further directive. She didn't reply. Instead, she pressed the second button on her vest. The visual stream, which had recorded for over 72 hours, uploaded silently into her secure backup relay. The file would include time-stamped footage of Beckett's interactions, the dispersal of civilians, the armed observers in the tree line, and the deliberate absence of hostile intent. The transmission pinged once, complete. She brought the rifle back to her back, clipped it snug, and stepped past Beckett without pause. Her footfalls made almost no sound against the moss floor. He didn't follow. He turned back toward the trees in the opposite direction. As she entered the brush line, the light behind her dropped to a copper fade. No one called her name. No further transmissions came through. She did not check the channel. She did not wait for consequences. She moved downhill, one breath at a time. Mission concluded, not executed, just seen for what it was. She did not look back. The tiltrotor set down at 0700, its exhaust flattening the mist along the eastern tarmac. Camp Sorell hadn't changed. Same canvas lines, same fuel drums marking perimeter zones. Rhea stepped off the ramp with one hand around her transit case, and the other gripping her bundled ghillie wrap. Her flight boots were streaked with dried mud. She didn't pause at the edge. She didn't glance up at the personnel trailers or the motionless guards watching her from the north wall. She walked, without sound, toward the bay. The fog had settled ankle-deep across the asphalt. It muted everything: voices, footsteps, memory. Near the fuel tent, a group of snipers stood in loose formation. They had just rotated in from a range sim. Most wore partial gear and carried their gloves looped through harness clips. One of them, a corporal from the previous kill team manifest, turned his head slightly as she passed. No one called her name. No one raised a hand. She caught a few glances, but not a single word. The rumor had already circulated. Echo 7 had frozen on mission. Echo 7 had disobeyed. Echo 7 had walked away. She crossed the length of the camp and reached the gear bays. The outer hallway smelled of solvents and metal filings. One overhead bulb flickered in time with the movement sensor. She keyed the lock herself. The latch released with a heavy click. No one followed her in. Across camp, in the Command Operations Center, a review team sat around a mission console with two suspended monitors. One ran live satellite feeds and border zone overlays. The other toggled between encrypted video buffers. A junior analyst worked through the overnight queue, deleting corrupted files and sorting surveillance metadata. He paused on one flagged log. It had auto-uploaded 3 hours prior under a red status tag tactical visual record. Ground stream. It was labeled with her ID. He clicked it open. Playback began immediately. The screen filled with filtered light. First came still canopy, then the compound. 4 crates, 2 vehicles, civilians in motion. There were no rifles, no formation, no shouting. A man in a sweat-dark shirt lifted a water drum. A group of children sat near a makeshift bench. One woman tied a tarp shut with both hands, then disappeared behind the structure. Someone at the table leaned in. "That's Beckett." Another officer, higher rank, turned. "He's confirmed dead." The analyst shook his head. "No, he's listed dead. This file is time-stamped 4 days ago." The footage stayed steady. Rhea's reticle never twitched. She panned as the civilians moved. Quiet dispersal. No chaos. No one held a weapon. Then her voice came through, clear on the auxiliary channel. 2 clicks west, low fire lane. Alpha Watch never forgot the ditch. Someone inhaled. Someone else leaned forward, frozen in place. On screen, the civilians began leaving packs loaded, children carried. Beckett secured the truck and lingered near the blue flagpole. The compound emptied. One colonel broke the silence. "Who the hell filmed this?" "Arrow 7. The analyst replied. "Helmet ID confirms. Gunnery Sergeant Rhea Carter. Unit cam was active for 72 hours. Red flag 7 authorized in stream. Manually authenticated." A general tapped the desk. "Why wasn't this sent through fire chain?" She bypassed it. Direct uplink to review relay. Another voice murmured. She had the whole picture. The footage continued, showing Beckett's final glance toward the ridge, the non-verbal signal, the vanish into trees. No resistance. No hostility. The room went quiet again. No one touched the controls. At that same moment, Rhea opened her locker in the gear bay. The name was still stenciled across the front. No one had removed it. The ink had faded from sun and time, but it was still there. She slid the door open and placed the transit case inside. Her checklist was taped to the lid. Nothing had been disturbed. Not the lens wrap. Not the sling tie. Not the spare bolt in the foam. Behind her, footsteps approached. "Gunny." She turned. A lieutenant stood in the doorway, flight harness unbuckled, sleeves pushed high, not one she recognized from earlier rotations. "They want you on the next wave," he said. She didn't answer at first. She looked him over once. "Only if I choose the target," she said. He nodded. That was enough. As she turned back to the case, across camp, a sealed envelope reached the operations console. It was marked for Colonel Ramirez. He opened it while standing in front of the frozen playback frame. The note was short. It authorized the immediate reinstatement of Gunnery Sergeant Rhea Carter. Full clearance. All credentials restored. Ramirez said nothing. He closed the folder, placed it on the table, and stepped away. In the bay, Rhea closed her locker, lifted her bag, and walked out. She moved past the assignment board. Her name was printed on the lower left, still typed in the default font from the initial manifest. Last time, no one had read it. This time, someone would... Her boots echoed once against the concrete, then faded into gravel. No one saluted. No one cheered, but the name was still there. And this time they didn't skip it. Rhea was never loud, never celebrated. She didn't raise her voice, and she didn't ask to be seen. But through silence, clarity, and precision, she carried out something few others could. In a world that too often confuses action with aggression, she chose restraint. She upheld truth when the system favored simple answers. And when they tried to erase her, she didn't push back. She simply returned with proof. Her strength wasn't in the shot she fired, but in the ones she didn't. This story isn't about vengeance or victory. It's about a woman who held her ground when no one believed she should, and showed that being unseen is not the same as being small. If Rhea's story stayed with you, take a moment to reflect on it. Share what it made you feel. And if you're drawn to stories like hers, quiet but unshakable, follow along. There are more to tell.